The most crucial and decisive battle of World War II is about to be fought. 1943, Battle of Midway. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
And guys, today we are playing, it's not really like our first sequel, but it's like a sequel to a game that we really didn't like. 1942, the game that just went beep, 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 beep. You guys hated this one.
I did. I hated it very
I was
much.
not a fan, particularly because I remember playing it as a kid and thought it was going to bring back all the nostalgia for me, and really, I just was frustrated.
Yeah, it really brought put a bad taste in my mouth for all of the shmups to come.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because at this point now, like 1942 might have been our very first shmup, but now we've played so many of them, and really just games from Capcom and Konami. They just continue to put like shmup after shmup, and Capcom, the last game we played from them was Legendary Wings, and I find that to be a very forgettable shmup. What about you guys?
I didn't hate Legendary Wings, but I also don't remember much about it. Yeah, same as Joe.
But no, I was just gonna say I don't remember too much about it. I remember being very similar. Like, it's just the thing. I remember being like a middle of the road. Meh.
Yeah, it had like vertical and horizontal shmup levels.
Yes,
you were
I do
just
remember.
you were like an angel. It just
Right.
I don't know.
And
There
you
wasn't
like
a lot
flew
of
into
connective.
that thing's mouth, right? And there was like a bonus level in there, and like things like that. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
That's
Yes.
exactly the one. So we got rid of the beeps in 1943 here, but we got rid of a lot of things. So I think just to give an overview of what 1943, the Battle of Midway, is all about, the Battle of Midway was fought between the Imperial Japanese Navy, commanded by Yamamoto, and the United States Navy, commanded by Nimitz. And this battle took place just 7 months following the attack on Pearl Harbor on June 4th, 1942.
Right.
Are we
Following-
Which is what gives it the
we in
name,
hardcore history
1943.
right now?
I thought it would be funny if I gave an overview of the actual Battle of Midway.
But it is. I think it is
And now
important.
an interview with a Navy pilot
Yeah.
from back then.
I think it is important though because in the history of it, we learned that it took place in 1942, not 1943, which makes it just funny that their best option to name the sequel to 1942, not wanting to do 1942-2, they just named it the next year, which is not when the battle took place.
That's great. I love that naming convention, but I don't understand. Is the subtitle literally Battle of Midway? Because I don't see that written anywhere.
See, I'm under the impression, just looking at like the instructions manual,
Is
that
that in?
it has it in there. I actually don't have the box art for reference, but I thought it was there.
It's definitely on the manual.
The important thing too, though,
Okay.
Sean, to your point, Sean, there is that this was an arcade game for a long time before it became an NES game. So it is possible that they didn't feel the need to include the Battle of Midway. But I also think in Japan it wasn't referred to by its actual historical battle, and instead it was called like the Battle of Valhalla or something like that.
Yeah, that would probably ruffle some feathers.
Right.
Yeah. But if it was originally an arcade game, is it possible that it did that thing that we've seen a lot of other things do, where when it gets ported to the NES, it just gets like an arbitrary well, this one's not arbitrary, but just gets a subtitle to differentiate it or make it feel like a different experience?
No, because I know it had Battle of Midway in the arcade because they wound up eventually releasing like Battle of Midway Mark II.
Gotcha.
They got very
They
creative.
didn't
with
just
this
call
stuff.
it 1944?
Or 1943 too.
It was
Yeah.
Battlefield 1949.
It should have been 1941.8 over 2 days.
Oh God.
They're really
That's
limiting them.
358 over 2 days.
They are
Every
limiting themselves
day.
though, because 1944, 45 is the end, right? So like you only have like 3 games left at best.
Well, I think that after that they would go like 1944, like January, and then like
Right.
February.
Yeah, 1944 January 1st. Then 1944 January 2nd.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
And in many ways, that is a Tetsuya Nomura naming convention. So we're not going to talk about the arcade game, but I think it's important for everyone to know that the NES version is the version of 1943 that introduces the mechanic that lets you improve your plane by divvying out like various progression points to your fuel gauge or your power or your defense in the arcade. None of that was there. You just had the standard plane that you found in 1942, and you just continuously kept going, throughout each level, never upgrading or changing your ship.
Yeah, I mean, I like the concept. I played through it a couple times with dispersing my skill points or whatever you want to say in different areas. I couldn't really feel any different. It didn't feel much different to me at all. But it's cool that it's there.
Yeah, I felt like, I mean, I don't know if I experimented enough to really say which ones I thought were the best, but I ended up putting a lot of my points into either offensive power or energy level. And I'm not sure how much use I would have gotten out of some of like defensive power, which sounds like it would be helpful, but at least for the way I was playing the game, I don't think it would have helped me that much. Just because your defensive power like defends you until you get to like one hit left and then you die, and I spend most of the game on one hit left and then I die. So like it just postpones that a little bit for me. I don't know. I feel like offense was the most useful for me.
Yeah, so you guys didn't have like a specific loadout that you preferred when you started the game. They let you distribute 3 points across the 5 different categories, which are offensive and defensive power, your maximum fuel level, and special weapons, and how long those special weapons, like the duration on them. I never touched the special weapons thing, but for me, I found that the maximum fuel level, the energy thing that Joe was referring to, I found that to be the most important thing, because it's the only thing standing between you and this being a regular shmup where one hit kills you.
Yeah, I also didn't touch the special gauge that much because everything about this game is so accurate as far as an NES game can be, up until the idea that this plane can like summon the power of weather and Zeus like lightning bolting you. So I just chose not to do that for aesthetic reasons.
Yeah, I preferred in 1942 when you got to just do like the barrel roll to get away from enemies.
Yeah, you can still do that. I think if you use special too many times, something along those lines. It's the same button, I think.
Yeah, but it does make it almost incentivizes you not to ever use it to get away from enemies, because then you waste one of your special attacks.
Yeah.
That's I thought that was a little bit of a flaw. Not to praise 1942 over 1943 at all.
So before we talk about like the actual game, I want to talk about this fuel gauge, because it's the most interesting part of this shmup, the one that differentiates it from all the other ones that we played on the NES so far. And the idea basically is, as we talked about here, is that it was think of the fuel gauge as your HP level. So if you have 99, it counts down from there. So whether you're playing or not, similar to that Dragon Ball game on the NES, where like no matter what you do, the HP just keeps going down. But it also goes down if you get hit by something. So you don't just take one hit in this shmup. You can theoretically take like 7 or 8 on a good day before you deplete your fuel. But even if your fuel's at 0, you still have an option to take on one more hit, and then you'll be gone for good. My question for either of you is, was this really enough though? Like, I should like the fact that it's not a one-hit KO game. It allows you to endure multiple hits. But I really hated the fuel idea, because the levels are very short bursts of interactivity. So the idea that your plane would be out of fuel seems kind of silly. And couple that with tying it to something like HP and something that just continuously falls down, it really doesn't work out. I never really found myself being able to manage my HP to be high enough by the time I got to a boss battle.
I think...
Go
ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, I completely agree that I think it's a really cool idea, and it should be something that works better, but I think that coupled with the fact that your fuel gauge or HP or whatever you want to call it is constantly draining no matter what. Like it's almost like a time limit. That makes it so like almost always if you get fuel, you'll run out of it by the time you find more fuel. So like I feel like once you get to 0, you're never in that level going to get back up to max or to more than a few hits.
I thought that it was fine. The thing I was very critical of the draining health gauge in the Dragon Ball game because it just reaching 0 is game over for you. Like that didn't matter what you were doing, didn't matter if you were like a pixel away from picking up some replenishment or the end of a level. It just ended right there because you were out of lifetime whatever unit. But in this game, once it gets to 0 or 0-ish, like you can just sort of cruise there and it sort of acts like a normal shmup where if you get hit, you die. So I think that it was an all right amount of leniency on the game's part. I mean, really, the fact that it drains, I guess, isn't that important to me. It's just if you can't get those red planes, that if you get all of them, it drops some energy. You're kind of shit out of luck. So it makes you more wary of picking up energy pickups when you can.
Yeah,
but I didn't have the same problems you guys had with it.
See, because I do still feel like that you could accomplish that though because it's a shmup and because I mean probably the regular player gets hit enough times where I think you're still going to want to like manage your energy level as much as possible. Whereas when it's just constantly draining, it almost feels like you have very little control. It's just when you find an energy thing, pick it up, but it's gonna drain whether you're playing good or you're playing bad. So it felt like after the first 30 seconds of the level, you're back to playing just pretty much a regular shmup with like a little boost once in a while. Not saying that it's anywhere near as bad as Dragon Ball was, where it like at least this doesn't completely hinder you. You can still play this as a regular shmup. But that's what made me feel like the intent that they had behind putting it in there was kind of lost because
I guess some of it could be like we're seeing more of the negative here because we see the fuel as like your baseline should be 64 or 99 or whatever your max is, but really any amount that you have over 20 is sort of a bonus. So if it's draining, it's just like you may as well be a bit more risky while you have this extra life than you would otherwise. I don't know. I guess it just depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll agree with you there, Sean. I think that's an interesting thing that I didn't consider not being a pro player. But if you're a pro player of shmups, having the fuel gauge not count down might almost make the game too easy. Yeah. And so this kind of keeps it at a level playing field and almost is like a fun advantage for newbies, but also something that they have to remember to deal with. You were talking about the trade-off in the power-ups that you get from the red planes, which is like a traditional shmup trope where like a series of enemies come down that are slightly different colored. Yeah. And if you kill all of them, you'll get this power-up to appear on screen. And I like how that's communicated now in shmups, just like a untold law. Yeah. How do these things happen? How do all developers like communicate with each other and say, this is what we're going to do?
It's called sublimation, devastation.
Got it. And so once you kill all those red planes, and you get like a POW symbol or something, you could just take that, or you can keep shooting at it, and you can get, you can turn it into a spread weapon, and you can also turn it into like a larger amount of fuel until a certain point where it just like is a permanent, it can no longer be changed into anything anymore, and it's like the maximum amount of fuel you can collect.
That is something I didn't even notice. I didn't know that you could keep shooting it and it would morph. I just picked it up immediately.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, it's really weird. As you keep shooting it, it changes like its icon a little bit, and then it ends with like what looks like 2 fuel canisters as the final thing.
And I thought, I might be wrong, but I thought that once you get those 2 fuel canisters, if you keep shooting it, you'll turn it back into the POW symbol.
Oh, I never shot beyond that because that it didn't keep moving forward when I shot it, but that's something that might be true. Can you confirm that?
I'm pretty sure I did it earlier. I was playing again to refresh myself.
Now, Joe?
Yeah, I have proof, but you can't see it. I'm pretty sure I did it earlier. I can't confirm, but that's how my memory works.
I liked the spread weapon too, the one that shoots out like 3 directional ammo. But again, that is tied to like a limited amount of like you only get like 12 of these in your capacity, and like that happens in terms of ammo in games and stuff like that, and we've even seen that in like Gun.Smoke. But I just thought it was weird here because in a shmup, the whole idea is like once you have that power up, that's like now your ship's a little more badass. Now it's like okay, your ship's a little more badass for 8 shots.
Yeah, I guess this game isn't really going for the same power fantasy that something like Gradius is. What they're going for instead, I'm not really sure. But
this is the gritty World War II game that we've all been craving for.
Exactly.
I didn't mind the different the power up only lasting for a little while. I think we're just used to like the ability to customize or add new things and keep them until you get hit. But that didn't bother me. It's almost like getting, it's not the same, but it's like getting the star in Mario, or just getting something that gives you like a temporary boost in any number of games.
Joe, what did you think about the enemies throughout the game? I thought it was pretty nice to have different sizes of enemy planes constantly on the screen with you. So you'll have like some really big ships that can offload really big planes that can offload smaller planes, and then you have bigger planes that shoot ammo back at you. You have boats that can attack from that. Thankfully, you don't have to bomb them. You can just shoot them. What did you think of all that?
I thought it was a nice variety. I mean, to be honest, the thing that stuck out to me the most about the enemy variety, or about the enemies in general, is that they did something that I feel like we don't see in a lot of shmups, where they don't just fly by you and then are gone forever. They like fly up to you in like a formation, and they flip around and they turn back like a plane would do, like an enemy would do. They wouldn't just fly by you and then just keep flying forever away from you. I thought it was interesting that they fly in little formations up to you to attack you. Some of them, like you said, there's a variety. There are some bigger ones that come from behind you and shoot off little planes. It was nice to see a little variety, especially if you're thinking back to 1942, where there was a lot less of that.
And Sean, what about like the overall design of the game aesthetically?
I will say that this is like 1942 remastered. I actually went back to play 1942 for a bit after I played through 1943, and it's like a whole new generation. Like it performs better. The music is actually music, and the places that you're flying over are actually they look kind of nice. Like there's some parallax going on when you're in the first stage of a level, when you're above the clouds and you see the ocean beneath it, and then at like, I don't know, like 2/3 of the way through, it'll say that it found a water-based target, and then you get closer. And so I like the art in this game. I think that it has a nice aesthetic going for it.
Yeah, I think you said it best there with the definitely an improvement or even remaster over 1942. I kind of wish that they, and I understand why, if it's the Battle of Midway, why there's so much sea, but I wish we would have gotten like some other landscapes just to see what they would have done with the design of like a mountain range or something like that.
I guess that would be the Battle of Mount Everest, Mike.
Right. Whoops. It's funny is like aesthetically, like, all of those things are great, and like Joe said, the variety of enemies is fantastic. But did you guys ever notice that if you shoot in just like some odd places every now and again, you get some really weird icons in this game? At one point, like a cow revealed itself as like a power up for me. Did you guys see that at all?
See the cow.
I only saw an elephant, a pink elephant.
I think that was a cat.
Because I was wondering, because I couldn't find it in the manual, but when I saw it in the game, it was so clearly an elephant to me. And then I looked back in the manual, and there's no elephant. Maybe the cat, but even that doesn't look anything like what I remember seeing.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
It's super funny. They don't do anything. They're just for, like, bonus points. Like, the cow doesn't give you, like, the power to shoot milk, unfortunately.
Ooh.
But
I think if you max out your
Missed
offense power
opportunity.
all the way, you get milk shooting.
Well, Joe, you joke, but there is an option, right? Like to continue on. Like you wouldn't know it if you're just passively playing this game. But if you're shooting all over the screen, there are other opportunities to continue to progress your ship to be even better. Did you guys ever get a chance to like attribute more points to your ship towards specific loadouts?
One time, I think before like the third boss or something, just before the boss battle, it was like, the screen just randomly was like, oh, here you go again. You can.
Yeah, I got one. I don't remember if I picked something up that allowed me to do that, or if I just had enough points, or if it just happens at that point in the game. But it happened to me once.
That's interesting because there is like, and I don't know if it's specifically just a flower power-up or if other power-ups, not power-ups, the bonus characters, if other bonus characters allow for it as well. But if you shoot in certain places on the screen, even if there's not an enemy there, you might notice like a registered hit. And so if you shoot at that area, like, and it doesn't have to be anything. It could just literally be the sea, You blink and you'll miss it. But if you shoot at that a few more times, a special bonus character will reveal itself, and in my case, a flower did. And when I ran into the flower, what wound up happening was it took me to the progression screen, and I got to attribute another point to another area.
Huh. Okay. Oh,
so it's pretty cool that you have that option to continue to upgrade your ship outside of just the start menu.
Yeah. Otherwise, the whole system is kind of worthless because it's got all of these spaces,
right?
And you only have 3 points. Yeah, it makes sense that you'd be able to do that.
I did, not to go off the rails here, but I'm watching a video of the game right now, and I did just find the elephant in this video. And
that's 100% an elephant.
Yeah, it's an elephant. Like maybe we could put it in a link to an image of it somewhere or something. But like, it's an elephant, but it's not in the manual.
I'll link it in the show notes, and we'll write to Nintendo and ask them why they made this blunder. Something else that's interesting, since we're talking about the progression of this, and I know Sean, you said it was kind of obvious, but like I don't know, I felt like I really didn't care about the progression system of this at all. And maybe it was because it didn't matter that much, but like for something that's a really cool idea at the start of your game, like, okay, customize your ship, right? Like that idea goes away really quickly. And by like level 3, I've completely forgotten that like my ship is unique to like a loadout that I've chosen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's because I didn't notice too much of a difference. And I guess if you're going to have something like that, there better be a visible difference between the stats that you're using.
And so, at the end of most levels, or maybe all of them, I didn't get too far in this game, there's a boss battle, which is either like a giant ship or a giant plane or a bunch of ships. And, there's many points to target. It's not like just shoot the core or something like that like we've seen in other games. What did you guys think of these boss battles? I found it kind of weird that if you don't kill everything on the screen, you have to restart back to that part of the boss battle, but with everything else still dead.
But I don't think you have to kill everything. I think you have to get like a passing grade in the percentage of what you
No, I mean, if you miss one gunner on the boat, then you have to restart and then kill that gun on the boat.
I didn't think that was true. Maybe for just the boat. I definitely, for at least one of the boss battles, maybe 2, got by with like 60% or 70% or something.
Wow.
especially that there's one that's like a giant plane towards the end. I beat that with like 60% and it let me move on. Then there were, the first two I might have gotten 100, so I don't know, but there were definitely other ones where like I would go back through and kill and get like 95% even, and it would let me move on.
It's just strange that like your copy of the game would allow you to be so mediocre.
I think it's heard of me, so it just knows it knows like that I don't like shmups.
He's not going to be able to do this.
Yeah, like they probably listen to the podcast. They know how much I hate shmups. They want to get a good review on the podcast. So, but no,
Joe, you're getting developer copies.
Yeah, they're sending me. We only choose things that we're paid to talk about. So far, it just happens to be every NES game in order.
Now, Joe, let me ask you something here, because I understand both sides of this. So, do you think that the passing grade argument is like better for the gameplay, or do you think you should have to 100% destroy the ship?
I mean, I don't feel too strongly on it. I think it is weird to not make you have to 100% destroy it. It was interesting that there were times where you can where you could win with like getting like, you destroyed 95% of it. Like, go on, like get out of here. But I thought it was just more interesting that this was a different style of boss battle, whether you have to kill the whole thing or not. That like you fly past it, and then if you didn't beat it, it like starts you over and it's like, keep going, like keep trying.
No, I just think that this is ridiculous, because if we're talking about, just get rid of the context of the specific video game we're talking about. You're asking, in a boss battle, should you have to defeat the boss, or should like if you get his health like 70% down, should they just say like, okay, you kind of did it, so here's level 2? Like, no. That's not in any video game.
Right, I know, I agree. That's why I said it's unique. I mean, it could be unique that, like, I don't think that it's, like, just because in every other video game it's always defeat thing completely. If you're fighting, like, a literal warship and you destroy 80% of it in like, a real battle, did you fail? Like, if you stop thinking about the way our video game language is, if you're on a mission to take down... a battleship and you destroy 70 turrets out of 80.
I think you failed.
They're going to be like, good job. Did you? Yeah.
Joe, if you didn't sink a ship and you're a one-man army, that ship is still getting to shore.
But you never sink the ship in this game. Even if you destroy it all the way, you just destroy all the turrets on it. It doesn't blow up or sink or go away.
No, it just sinks off. It sinks off camera. Come on, guys.
That's true. Yeah, you didn't kill everybody.
No, it goes. That's you flying over it. But yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah, totally. It's weird and it's not the way boss battles normally work. But like, why do boss battles have to work? That like, I mean, obviously I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But why do boss battles have to work where it's like do the best possible at defeating it? Where it's like it's okay to have like
this is a ridiculous
tiers of success. No, it's.
Joe, no. I'm there with you because I agree. I think it's better to be like, well, you did 70% job, so he's done, as opposed to when you do defeat a boss and then the cutscene reveals that you've lost. Like, I would rather say, like, okay, well, I came pretty close to beating him, so just say I beat him, then beat him handedly, and then the cutscene makes you lose.
In specific games.
But or if you also equate it, I know it's different than like a boss battle, but if you just equate it to some games where your goal is to take out the enemy, and if you kill every enemy on screen, you 100% the game, that's like going the extra mile. But you can also beat the game without doing everything.
Beating a boss isn't the same as 100% in the game. It's just that's what you got to do.
I know. I said that at the beginning of my sentence, but I just don't think that like. I agree that it is like the norm, and it's probably better to have to just defeat the boss entirely. But now I'm just defending the fact that like it doesn't have to be the way every video game works. It's okay for a game to say like, yeah, if you get 80% of it, you pass, but you can do better with this gold and silver and bronze or whatever, however different.
I'm just glad
ways you want to.
I'm just glad
quantify the tiers of success. I think it's okay to open that box and try something different.
Yeah, I'm just glad that we can get the hot takes on nostalgia for our listeners to hear opinions about, like, you know what? You don't have to beat bosses. You just do your best. You just do your best. It's great.
Well, okay. It sounds like you're twisting my sentiment there, but
I'm starting to think this is not how the Battle of Midway actually went down. One thing we have to talk about that we haven't talked about yet is that this is a shmup with a password system, and that's because there's 24 stages to this game. That is amazing amount of content. What do you guys think about that?
I've saw maybe 10% of it.
Yeah, I thought that. I know it doesn't loop exactly, but it seems like it starts to really recycle a lot of its assets. I feel like I thought that the game looped after the third level because it felt like I was playing the same level, and then I realized it's a little different, it's a little harder. I didn't get too much further than that, so I don't know how much that holds up later in the game.
Yeah, Mike, if you played longer, do they eventually get to land?
I did not see land. I'm sure they get there. There has to be. I can't imagine 24 stages of the same stuff. At that point, just loop it. It's kind of crazy that there's 24. I say unique, but we know that there's not that much different. But there is some kind of development process to these levels. So 24 stages is a crazy amount of a number for a shmup game where any particular when your fuel gauge isn't quite right and you take a hit in the wrong area, I'm used to Life Force having 8 stages. That's crazy, you got to get through all 8. It's a journey. 24 is would you travel across the whole Pacific Ocean by yourself to go face Japan on your own? I don't know, but I do like a password system. I enjoy a good password system instead of having to figure out, buy a cheat book and then figure out if I put in this directional input pads, it will reveal the level select option for me.
Ah, yeah.
So give me passwords any day of the week.
Yeah, as long as you can't, provided that you can't save it, which is obviously the preferred method. Because even passwords, sometimes I'm like, do I even feel like inputting this password or writing it down and all that?
Yeah, and on top of that too, cheating, buying a cheat book or whatever is it just seems weird that there's this, left, right, up, down, all that stuff to get these things that are clearly programmed into the game. So just give them as an option to begin with. What is the point of having them as a cheat?
We're talking about the idea of cheat codes in general now.
We're not getting so. Don't take us out of context again.
I'm not.
I'm just saying, don't derail the conversation. All I meant is that give me, if there is a level select option built into your game, whether it's via cheat codes or whatever, I would prefer that just be available to the player as opposed to saying we made this whole level select thing, but that should be tied behind an arbitrary input code.
I guess okay. I have no opinion on that.
Great. Okay. I'm not debating cheats. Those are fine and fun, and I think they added a lot more value to games than the DLC that we get today. Anyway, obviously we've talked about how this is an improvement from 1942, but I think it's worth mentioning that the most notable reason I could think of for why that happened is that this port of 1943 was handled directly by Capcom, and 1942 was handled by Micronix, who I'm sure you guys remember is making a bunch of Capcom's ports early on in the system, like Ghosts and Goblins and stuff. So it's a nice big step above the original's NES port because of Capcom finally being let's make our own NES games, not just publish them. Now, unfortunately, guys, in terms of sequels and spin-offs, this will be the last 1940X game that we play on the NES, so there's no 1944 for us.
Yeah, well, it's probably still coming.
Yeah, there are other sequels and spin-offs that I think are worth mentioning. We talked briefly at the beginning about 1943, the Battle of Midway Mark II, and while that's a cool name, I suppose, it's mostly the same thing, except for the graphics and sounds have been like slightly better off for the arcade version. Like they plussed up that stuff. And quote unquote, directly from Capcom, the game has been made more extreme.
I believe that 100%.
What do they use as their what are the examples of what makes it more extreme?
I honestly think just from looking at it, I think what makes it more extreme is just that they started to say, okay, sure, this is happening during World War II, but what if we added in crazier ship designs and just made it more like a bullet hell style thing than a actual dogfight?
What if heavy metal existed in the 40s?
Yeah, exactly, Sean. Not quite with a clown driving any of the ships, or flying any of the ships.
You're thinking of Twisted Metal.
Oh, I'm thinking of Twisted Metal. Yeah, what's heavy metal? Are you talking about? What's heavy metal?
Heavy metal,
a music genre. It's extreme.
Explain more. I can't follow. I don't follow you here.
But Twisted Metal is also extreme. So probably was there heavy metal in Twisted Metal?
That's true. Anyway.
I just assume that you only speak in PlayStation 1 games.
It's not. You know what, Mike? You've got a lot of problems with the way I'm talking, and you're the one that's got the problems.
I do. Quote that somebody quote that to me on Twitter. Be like, at Esposito Film, you're the one with all the problems.
You know what? I say we go to the essential games list.
No, we can't go there yet because hold on, real fast. 1941 Counterattack. That's an arcade game.
1941 Counterattack. Is that?
Yeah,
is it a prequel?
They went back. Yeah, it's a prequel. And it's a counterattack to what?
Blitzkrieg?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Then they say, forget about the years altogether. This is 19XX, the War Against Destiny.
Okay.
Well, that was right after World War II ended, right? We had the War Against Destiny?
Yes, that's true. That's true.
We just got word from our audio producer that the counterattack was a counter to Pearl Harbor. So
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little event in history.
Yeah.
Someday people will be doing that with other world events, They'll be like 2021 the counterattack. What was that in response to it? It'll be like, oh, that pandemic, that global pandemic that happened.
That we attacked.
The war between the United States and China.
Right. And then, what else do I have here? Oh, the last one, 1944, The Loop Master.
Okay, now it's...
I don't... Is that in reference to, the we keep talking about the gameplay loop? Is that just, they finally mastered it?
And they're acting like it's a good thing?
Interesting to note that it came out in 2000 on the arcade and also on GameTap. Do you guys remember GameTap?
I don't think I've ever heard of GameTap.
It was like the precursor to Stadia and all that stuff. It was streaming video games, right?
Yeah, exactly. On your as long as you had a broadband internet connection.
Yeah, and that broadband back then I think still included DSL. So
yes. All right. I know that this whole thing has been derailed for the last 20 minutes. So let's reel it back in here and do what this whole podcast is actually about and do our essential games list. Okay, Joe, you are going to tell me right now whether 1943, which may or may not have the subtitle The Battle of Midway, is an essential game.
I'll first say that coming into this, remembering 1942, the video game, not the year, I had very low expectations for this. I was not looking forward to playing it. And maybe that contributes to the fact that I really had fun playing this game. It was a vast improvement over 1942. And I think it was, as far as shmups go, which we all know I don't care for, it was pretty fun. But I don't have too much that's oh, this part was terrible or that was terrible. It just wasn't on that level that gets it to essential game. There was just nothing that makes me want to really go back and play it again. And it's not like it was the most fun I've had, and not even close, with any of these shmups. So it's just good, but not essential.
Fair enough. And Sean?
Well, in terms of the essential games list, I can't put this game on here. If we had a most improved sequels list, then I could put that on there. Um, but yeah, pretty much everything Joe said. In terms of the essential principles of podcast design, I would say that the idea of going off topic for a little bit is actually nice, and doesn't mean that it's a derailing of the
Sean, are you
episode.
telling
So
us
that's my
that
take.
we shouldn't be telling you to stay in your lane?
I would say that a podcast can.
Is there
can
anything
get a little
that you
loose with it
feel like
once
you
in a
didn't get a
while.
chance to say that you might want to say now?
No, not at all. But I think
This will be our last episode.
I'm being
as this
fired
one,
after today. So
by the way.
All right.
I've said
I
everything
will
I
just
care to.
say that it's, for someone like me, it's great to find out new things like the genre of heavy metal. I thought there was just metal. I never knew that it could get heavier than metal. So, what's next? Thrash metal? Like, that's crazy. Anyway, you know what's not metal? Or what might be made of metal? I don't know. That analogy is not going anywhere. 1943 is a good game. It's definitely an improvement over 1942, and I quite like a lot of stuff that's going on here. I just have it in a gut feeling kind of thing that I know this can't be an essential game because, one, it wasn't that enjoyable. It was more enjoyable to see the actual improvements over the previous entry than it was to play the game. I really enjoyed just noting, like, oh, that's neat, they fixed that, or oh, this looks better, or finally some music. But that's not enough to get you into an essential games list. You're not up there with The Legend of Zelda just because you add music. So I don't know. I don't want to dismiss this game. I think it is one of the okay shmups that we've gotten for the system. I think it's in the middle of the pack, whereas 1942 is now getting closer to the end of the pack. It's just not up there with Life Force or Gradius for me. So not an essential game.
Wait, I did have one thing I wanted to mention at the beginning of the podcast. Totally forgot. Do we all think that 1942 was the worst shmup we've played? I'm trying to remember other ones.
It is the worst shmup I've played.
Is it? Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there were other ones worse. For me, it's the worst one I can remember. But there were so many, a lot of them kind of blurred
Hold
together.
on, I have a list for this kind of thing. Give me a second. Keep talking. Talk about whether you would want Sean to stay on the podcast or not.
I'm going to submit my vote privately.
Okay, very
actually.
good, very good.
I don't want to publicly do this, on the air as we are.
All right. Well, it looks like there's one anonymous no. I wonder who that could be.
I would say that, while you might not add a ton to the show, and you might not be that knowledgeable on things, that your voice is very sexy, and that would be missed.
Yeah, you guys would have nowhere to go if you didn't have this silky smooth voice.
Well, especially because everyone thinks me and Mike sound the same. No one would be able to. There'd be no break from the one other voice.
It's
See
true.
now, okay, Sean, you're on the show. Okay, you'll come back to next week for us. Okay, I'm of the opinion that you guys think that I have many rules that define a shmup. Because you guys wouldn't let me rest about how I was saying Galaga's not really a shmup because of these rules. So if you're counting any game that involves spaceships and shooting, Defender 2 was the worst in my opinion.
I don't even remember Defender 2.
It was 4 episodes ago, kid.
Now you know how I play these games.
We had two episodes very close together where they were where you couldn't move forward.
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Yeah.
But Defender 2, you could move forward.
Oh, okay. then I don't know what we're talking about.
Very good. I'm Michael Esposito. This has been Nostalgia. We talk about anything we want here. Never tell content creators to stay in their lane because they can do whatever they want, and they're regular human beings who have opinions as well. So with that in mind, next week we're going to have a lot of opinions about a certain game called Donkey Kong Classics. A game that I'm not quite sure what it could be about, but I'm excited for a new Donkey Kong entry. I can't wait to hear what you guys all think about that. I'll see you then. I'm Michael Esposito. You can find me on Twitter at EspositoFilm. You can find Nostalgia on Twitter at NostalgiaCast, posting lots of cool stuff. Talk to you later. Bye.